Hi, I'm Sydney Sweeney, and I'm from Spokane, Washington. I can work as a local hire as well, though, and I am available for the American Eagle jeans campaign shoot.
Profile and hands, please. Thanks. We'll be in touch.
Sydney Sweeney, Hasbro Jeans.
Next.
Good morning, dear viewers. As you can see, I am alone in here. Just like that Chevelle song. What song was that? What was that called? It's the last track on, not This Type of Thinking, but the one that had Send the Pain Below on it, and the red, and what is the name of that record? I'm going to kill myself. Oh, I can't remember what it's called, but anyway, that's a line from the song. Am I alone in here? Pete LaFleur whining about, or Lofleur, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but it's him whining about being broke up with. Which we've all been there. Okay, there it is. Hello, 13. Good morning, sir. Happy weekend to you as well. Well, no liar today. He had a previous engagement. Something about a wedding. I don't know. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I could do this shit alone. I don't need a co-host. It's just fun to have one. Anyway, this, if you watch the last two streams, then you know that I've been having technical difficulties again. I don't know why, but that's just what happened. The stream just randomly gets cut off. I don't know why, but sometimes Rumble Studio just ends the stream just completely. And then there's like OBS sometimes just shuts itself off. Again, not sure why. But this is actually this cold open I decided to go with was something that I have been I intended to talk about last week, which is the left losing their mind over, and some elements of the right too. To be fair, hairball. Yeah, it's possible it was a hairball because I am a cat. I really got to get like my own VTube avatar thingy. Like I got to stop using this like stock one that came with the VTube Studio. That's all it was. It's just a cat. I just put sunglasses on it. I was gonna give him like a hooded robe because they've got that in the options, but it looks silly. Like it doesn't look right. Like the it's it's not a good option. I was gonna give him like the robe try to keep with the whole Palpatine theme. I just gotta man up and hire somebody to actually make my VTube avatar. And I've been toying with the idea of not using. I appreciate that 13, but again, like if there had been a dog avatar, because I'm much more of a dog person. I like cats. I have a cat, but I'm much more of a dog person. And I was intending I would have used a dog if VTube Studio had like a pre-built dog. No, I've been toying with the idea of kind of not rebranding because I'm still going to be go for Papa Palpatine. Like I'm not changing that, but changing my avatar symbol from the troll face in a Sith robe to a Doge in a Sith robe, and then having the VTube avatar made to just basically be a Shiba Inu in a black Sith robe, possibly wearing sunglasses as like a reference to the cat. Like these are just idoys. Yes, these are idoys. Idoys. These are ideas that I've just been kind of kicking around. But anyway, on to the news. I'm gonna try to get through this. Now, again, this was a story I intended to cover last week. Shout out to Sarah Fields. At Sarah is censored on X. Follow her. She does good stuff. She's pissing off all the right people. Yeah, I should totally look into it. 13, and I'm going to. I got a friend of mine who I've known for years, who's really into the VTubing stuff, and he's offered to kind of walk me through the process. So, I'll get through it. But anyway, like, unless you've been living under a rock for like the last like 2 or 3 weeks, American Eagle put out an ad, and they decided to pay Sydney Sweeney to be their new jean salesperson. And because she's a pretty blonde girl with big old hooters, so they put her in jeans, and they said that Sydney Sweeney has great jeans, and it's spelled Geans, as in jeans, because she's wearing American Eagle jeans, and American Eagle wants you to believe that their jeans are the best jeans. But it's also as the French call it, le double entendre, because she has literally has good genes, Genes, like, because I mean, look at her. Sydney Sweeney is not by any stretch of the imagination a ugly woman. Let me full screen this again. She's not. She's incredibly pretty. There's when I say like, and when I talk about like elements of the right who are against this, you have like the trad cons and the trad cats who are like she gets naked for money. This is stupid. Stop. You're lusting. Fucking moral busybodies who whine about this stuff all the time. But the majority of the outrage is coming from the left because they think that the whole like a blonde woman talking about her genes is a Nazi dog whistle because it's like eugenics or whatever, and the Nazis were super into genes and eugenics and good Aryan blood and bloody fucking blah. But like, who cares? Like, this was 80 years ago and people are still whining about it. But it's not just that; it's also the fact that she's a classically beautiful blonde American girl, and people don't like that shit. They preferred it whenever gene ads were all fat, black, non-binary people with, top surgery scars and rainbow-colored hair, and it's just like, that shit didn't work. That shit didn't sell jeans. So obviously they're going to be like, okay, we need to sell some jeans, especially if you look into it. I don't have anything pulled up for this, but if you look into it, American Eagle sales were on a steep ass decline, and then they did this Sydney Sweeney ad, and then their sales spiked up like some ridiculous, something like 30%, if I remember correctly. So it worked. People are all like, "Oh, American Eagle jeans are for regular people again. Let's go buy some American." I've never owned a pair of American Eagle jeans in my fucking life. I'm going to be honest with you. If American Eagle jeans started selling like these super wide leg, like almost like
Hi, I'm Sydney Sweeney.
almost, like, I mean, these are girl jeans, obviously, but if they had male equivalent where they're like basically Jinkos or like Levi's pipes, or kickwear jeans, like I would consider, okay, American Eagle, because I like baggy clothes anyway. I've always been a baggy clothes guy. It's my, 90s to early 2000s new metal influences. of liking like baggy new metal clothes. That's how we dressed. But I would be down for that. Yeah, everybody's losing their shit over it. There's also I'm tangenting and I apologize. But there's all like I said, there's the other part of the elements on the right, other than like the moral busybodies and the trad cats and the trad cons whining about like slutty. Ben Shapiro's whined about this too. Melanie Mack whined about this, and then people. That's hilarious, by the way. If you know anything about what's going on with her, she was whining about the Sydney Sweeney ad as her most recent shit take. She called Sydney Sweeney a glorified prostitute who gets naked for money, even though she's not naked at all in the jeans ad. She shows a little bit of cleavage, and in this one, her belly. So, okay, fine. I have seen more of Melanie Mack's body than I have seen of Sydney Sweeney's. And I know Sydney Sweeney has done nudes in movies. So, fine, sure. At this point, I would say, especially where I've looked into this, I have at this point seen more of Sydney Sweeney, but still, like, before this whole controversy kicked off, I had seen more of Melanie Mack's body than I had ever seen of Sydney Sweeney's. And now she wants to sit there and see, I'm tangenting again, and I apologize. No one could have seen the ripples the ad effects have had. No, I know. Nobody could have foreseen this. It was just like, okay, let's get a pretty blonde girl to sell jeans, and I'm sure that'll help. And it worked. But yeah, the Melody Mack, she gets so pilloried, and I was there. Like I was in her replies to the original thing. I replied to her too. Called her retarded. Like everyone was just all like, what is this take? This is the stupidest take. Sydney Sweeney's not a prostitute, she's an actress, and this is a fairly tame clothing ad. Like, not even, and I'm not talking about clothing ads from the 90s. I'm talking about clothing ads from like 5 to 10 years ago. We're way raunchier than this. Like, there was one clothing ad, I can't remember what company it was for, but they had a huge billboard up in New York, in Times Square, if I remember correctly. And it was literally two guys getting ready to do a devil's triangle with a girl. And I can't remember, like, the tagline in the billboard ad, but it was, like, something obviously suggestive of the fact that they were about to have a man-woman-man threesome. And like they're all three of them were almost. I think the girl wasn't even wearing a shirt. She just kind of had like her arm strategically placed over her nips. So it was like way more raunchier and way more suggestive than this ad. Like, this ad is super tame in my opinion. Like, this ad campaign. But yeah, you had, like I said, you have elements of the right bitching about it. The thing that really like triggered me the most is everybody trying to insist, not everybody, but a lot of people trying to insist that Sydney Sweeney's actually just not even that pretty. Like, lefties were doing it, rightoids were doing it. Everybody was calling her as like, whatever, she's average. You could find a girl like her in any town in America. And I'm like, not really. Like, on what planet is Sydney Sweeney just an average woman, especially today in 2025? You're telling me the average woman looks like Sydney Sweeney? That she's mid? That's like, there's, like, Pearl's real bad for saying this shit, and her boyfriend too, Nuke. Like, both of them are real bad for saying this stuff, that Sydney Sweeney's just mid. I'm like, no, she's not. She's not mid. Or people saying that she's like, yeah, she might have been a 10 in Kentucky, but in Miami she's a 6. No. This girl is, I'm not even going to put a number on it. She's a beautiful girl no matter where she goes. And anybody telling you otherwise is ideologically captured by either leftism, anti-patriarchy bullshit, the red pill, where every woman is mid and no woman is worth it. Like, everyone is just ideologically, anyone who says Sydney Sweeney is ugly or mid is ideologically captured or just lying and gaslighting you. To find a, I don't even know how tall she is, whatever, like 5'2", 5'3", whatever she is. She might be slightly taller than that, but like a sub 6 foot blonde girl with big boobs and thick thighs. Like, and everybody's trying to gaslight you into thinking that that is not a beautiful woman, and it's just not true. It's retarded. People are being retarded. Everybody's being retarded. It's a fucking jeans ad. And then what's really crazy is you got leftoids out there trying to claim that nobody's melting down over this. I'm like, okay, get on TikTok and tell me there's no one melting. Like, you can just find, like, It's a Gundam's done a video on this. There's video compilations of people on TikTok and Instagram short or reels and YouTube shorts. Women, ugly, fat, miserable lesbians and leftist women just going completely apoplectic over this jeans ad. And it's so stupid. 13 says, Melanie, I didn't even notice this before. Melanie Mack doesn't stop primping, constantly staring at herself while streaming on the fraction of news. Ben Stiller and Owen Wilson made sure triangles would never be enticing. Is that a Zoolander reference? Because believe it or not, I've actually never seen either of the Zoolander movies. Never seen it. Now, the reason why I'm talking about this 2 or 3 weeks late is because within last week, and the reason why I brought this up originally, and stop ranting about it now, is the fact that um, American Eagle didn't apologize. They didn't cave to the pressure. They doubled down. This thing here, where she's doing like the kind of like faux audition thing, and they're taking pictures of her, like she's auditioning for the modeling, for the modeling for the advertisement campaign. This is actually the second ad that I've seen. I've seen the first one where her laying down and she's got the jean jacket on, and like her cleavage is all out there as you like. This one is the second one, and this is them doubling down, and they have a statement here. Sydney Sweeney has great genes, is and always was about the genes. Her genes, her story. We'll continue to celebrate how everyone wears their American Eagle jeans with confidence, their way. Great jeans look good on everyone. Like, that's the worst thing you can do is apologize to the mob. And I'm glad that there are American companies who are finally realizing that A, beautiful people sell products. It's a fact of life. B, not everyone on earth needs to be represented in your advertising. And C, apologizing never works. It's like Trump says, always claim victory, never admit defeat. Attack, attack, attack. Never back down from these people. It's not worth it. You think these fat lesbians were going to buy, like, they weren't buying American Eagle jeans in the first place. You think they're going to start after you apologize for the Sydney Sweeney ad campaign? No, of course not. And luckily, whoever's in charge at American Eagle went, we're not apologizing. We're going to double down. I think they also realized that, and this is a bit of a swipe at my own side, but that, the rightoids are so desperate for a win that they will patronize any company that does something they find even mildly acceptable. So, they do the Sydney Sweeney ad, then they refuse to apologize. Any losses they would take from lefties buying their jeans would be made up for with rightoids buying their jeans. I'm like, oh, it's like, okay, we're gonna lose. I'm just ballparking numbers here. We're gonna lose 100,000 customers from doing this, but we're gonna gain 250,000 customers. So we're gonna net 150,000 more customers, all because Republicans, just like they did with Teslas until they turned on Elon because he turned on Trump. Like rightoids started buying Teslas. Now rightoids are going to start buying American Eagle jeans, assuming they weren't already. And if you were to look at the sales numbers, they probably weren't. But yeah, the whole thing is kind of stupid. Sydney Sweeney is not ugly. She's a perfectly beautiful girl. She's not mid. It's easy to get a bad picture of anybody on the beach. The angle, the lighting. She wasn't wearing makeup. Who gives a shit? Good on American Eagle for refusing to back down and, cave to the mob. Fuck the mob. It doesn't accomplish anything. It doesn't prove anything. They're not going to buy your products, just like, get woke or, get woke, go broke. They were making movies and video games for an audience who never wanted to watch their movies or play their video games. And comic books too. And look what happened to all three of those industries. Well, I mean, video games are actually bigger now than they've ever been. But a lot of game devs, took huge financial hits because nobody bought their shitty woke garbage games. Yeah, like I said, you don't have to represent everyone. You don't. You're not required to. One of the things that it's almost always women complaining about this stuff too. Like there are men out there that complain about like not being represented, but like take a character like Goku. All right, Goku appeals to everyone. All right, he's a Japanese character who's an alien from another planet with big, stupid, spiky hair that turns blonde, blonde in the sun. And he, like, everyone, we're talking whites, blacks, Hispanics, Eastern and Western Europeans, Asians, obviously, like everybody from every walk of life. Everybody loves Goku. Everybody can. Well, I'm talking about men here, but like everybody can like identify with him in some way. You don't have to like you don't have to make these like rainbow characters. You don't even have to make a character. It's like, well, we need a black character. We need no, just make good written characters that have traits that people can identify with, and it'll go. It'll sell. Dragon Ball's one of, if not, one of the biggest, if not the still the biggest media, like anime and manga media franchise. I don't know about like numbers for that, so I could just be talking out of my ass here. But at one point, it was the biggest in the world. Dragon Ball was the king. That means everybody loved it, and everybody had something to identify with. Black dudes love Piccolo. It is what it is. They found someone to identify with. Well, we absolutely love women's. The hell does that mean, 13? F pace? I'm sorry, you're going to have to help me out there. If the recent ad does any good, it will at least bring the prices down for when she's ready to upgrade in a year or two. I'm not sure what you mean, 13. I'm going to need a little more elaboration. Holy shit, did I really spend 20 minutes talking about Sydney Sweeney? Well, again, I wasn't really talking about her. I was talking about the shitstorm around her. Jaguar. What? Dude, you were confusing the shit out of me. I'm not sure what you mean. Anyway, we're gonna move on now. Speaking of Elon Musk, have you seen the Jaguar ads? No, I haven't seen the Jaguar ads. I have not. No, I'm not like I like cars, but like I don't know, Jag has never been like a brand that's super high on my car list. You know what I'm saying? So like I've not. No, I haven't seen any of the ads. What, do they got like hot chicks sitting on the hood of a car? Like are hot chicks driving the cars? Like Are we are we is society, is nature healing? Is society finally getting back to where it is, where we realize that beautiful people sell products? Oh no, I haven't seen those at all. I'm gonna have to look those up at some point. But yeah, I mentioned Elon Musk and his little fallout with Donald Trump earlier, and well, it seems like they found common ground on something again, so that's good. Elon Musk backs Trump over federalization of Washington D.C. after Doge staffers brutally beaten. So this is what I named the episode about because this was I don't know, this came across my desk and I thought it was important to talk about. A guy was brutally assaulted trying to stop another assault from happening, and it turns out this guy worked for Doge, and not only did he work for Doge, but he is the famous Big Balls, the Doge staffer who became a bit of a meme last year or earlier this year, I should say. My bad. For his stupid nickname and saying is like this 20 something who calls himself Big Balls is out here with like all this power to he could be ending people's jobs and all this shit, and it's just like, yeah, good, who cares about your bureaucratic government bullshit job. Anyway, as a result of the fact that like this woman was being assaulted by multiple men and then this guy steps in and gets brutally beaten to shit, Trump calls to federalize Washington D.C. This is where it would essentially fall under his purview. There's no longer like there would no longer be if I'm I'll read the article here in a second, but essentially I remember Trump laying this out before that there would no longer be a mayor of Washington D.C. because the president would be the mayor effectively. He would have direct control over the city. He would take on like the mayoral duties. Um, the police and everything like that would answer directly to the president, all these things. And I can kind of see it, you know. Why have an entirely separate I mean, I get it, it's because the president has so many other kind of like responsibilities that you wouldn't want to add on top of that running of a major American city like Washington D.C. But there it gets to a point where Washington D.C. has become such a shit show, like it's a dangerous place. Like obviously there's a vested interest in keeping, the touristy spots, all you know, the monuments and the White House and Congress, and all these places to keep them as safe and as clean as possible. Uh, but the rest of the city is just a shit show. It's a shit show. And maybe it's time to federalize it. Who knows? I did not hear that 13. 13 said, I think Elon called the President Trump and kissed the ring. They're back on speaking terms. I hope that's the case because I like it better when they're friends. This is kind of what Elon does. Elon always crashes out whenever he has like a principled disagreement with someone. He ends up like crashing out and saying stupid shit about them, which is what he did to Trump. And like he did such a 180. Like I remember the tweet that said, "I love President Trump about as much as one heterosexual man can love another." And then like 3 months later, he's saying that Trump is a pedo and is in the Epstein files. I mean, granted, he deleted that tweet and apologized, but still, this is what he does. He when he gets mad at a person, he crashes out super hard. Elon Musk threw his support behind the president after Donald Trump threatened to federalize Washington, D.C. The threat came after a Department of Government Efficiency employee was reportedly assaulted while trying to save a woman from several attackers. The man who was attacked has been identified as Doge employee Edward Korstein, who is also known by the nickname Big Balls. A few days ago, Musk said on X in response to Trump's post on Truth Social, a gang of about a dozen young men tried to assault a woman in her car at night in D.C. A Doge team member saw what was happening, ran to defend her, and was severely beaten to the point of concussion, but he saved her. It's time to federalize D.C. And what Trump's full statement is down here. Crime, and this is what Trump said on Truth Social. Crime in Washington, D.C. is totally out of control. Local quote-unquote youths and gang members, some only 14, 15, and 16 years old, are randomly attacking, mugging, maiming, and shooting innocent citizens. At the same time, knowing that they will be almost immediately released. They are not afraid of law enforcement because they know nothing ever happens to them. But it's going to happen now. The law in D.C. must be changed to prosecute these minors as adults and lock them up for a long time, starting at age 14. The most recent victim has been beaten mercilessly by local thugs. Washington, D.C. must be safe, clean, and beautiful for all Americans and, importantly, for the world to see. If D.C. doesn't get its act together and quickly, it will have no choice but to take federal control of the city and run the city how it should be run, and put criminals on notice that they're not going to get away with it anymore. Perhaps it should have been done a long time ago. Then this incredibly young man and so many others would not have had to go through the horrors of violent crime. If this continues, I'm going to exert my powers and federalize this city. Make America great again. Make America great again. So yeah, he's talked about this for a long time. This isn't the first time he's brought up the idea of federalizing DC because DC is such a shit show of a city. Trump has said on Truth Social, crime in D.C. Oh, I already read that. Yep. Oh, well, yeah, I read the whole thing there. But yeah, this is what they did to Big Balls. He got the shit absolutely kicked out of him. It's just funny that of all the people who showed up to save this girl, it's the guy who's known for whose name is Big Balls, and he proved how big his balls are. I mean, I'd like to see security camera footage. Did he really fight off a dozen men? Well, not fight off. Did he distract a dozen men who were so concerned with beating the shit out of him that the woman got away? Which, was it really like a dozen men? You know what I'm saying? Like, maybe. I have no reason to assume that everyone's lying about this. So yeah, it's just the libertarian in me. Well, what little libertarianism is still there. It kind of screams out in horror every time I hear anything getting federalized. But of all the things that probably should be under the control of the federal government, the capital of the entire country, the seat of the federal government probably should be federalized. I mean, and this doesn't guarantee that all the crime and shit would be cleaned up. I believe under Trump's watch, if Trump became effectively the mayor of Washington, D.C., I do believe that there would be a significant uptick in, uh, arrests and prosecutions and indictments and all these things. But nothing like this gets solved overnight. But I mean, sometimes you got to do what you got to do. And like Washington D.C. is a complete shit show. It is not a good city. It's not a great place to live. It's expensive and it's dangerous. All right. So, in international news, I again, the libertarian in me screams in horror at stuff like this, but I can't help myself because like shit has gotten so bad in some places. You kind of understand why people like this can come along and you know, pull off things like this. A shout out to the Guardian. Opposition leader says democracy in El Salvador has died after scrapping of presidential term limits. Yes, Bukele has successfully legislated to do away with term limits and to increase the length of his terms. So, if Bukele continues to get elected, he could serve for life. And I actually, generally speaking, am a fan of term limits. I think they're good. I think we definitely need, at least here in the United States, we need term limits on Congress and the Senate. Um, the I've suggested a system where you can serve 10 2-year terms in Congress, so you can serve 20 years maximum. Well, in the House of Representatives, and then you can serve 3 6-year terms as a U.S. senator, so 18 years. So you can serve in one house, and then if you can get elected to the other house, in total you can serve for 38 years, and then you got to go. Then the only thing that's up for you at the federal level is either appointments by the president or running for the presidency. But again, El Salvador is a much smaller country, so they have a lot of problems. And I mean, if Bukele continues to do the things he's done and continue to gain popular support in El Salvador, then like if this is what their people want, who the fuck am I to to criticize them for it? I can criticize things about it, but like at the end of the day, this is what they choose for themselves, right? Activists and opposition leaders have warned that El Salvador is following Venezuela's path toward dictatorship after the Central American country's Congress scrapped presidential term limits, paving the way for Nayib Bukele to seek indefinite re-election. Quote, democracy in El Salvador has died, opposition Congresswoman Marcela Villatoro declared late on Thursday as the legislature, in which Bukele's Nuevas Ideas party controls 90% of the seats, approved the highly controversial constitutional reform by 57 votes to 3. So yeah, like this wasn't just popular, so this was popular like inside of Congress or inside of their parliament or Congress. I guess they have a Congress, not parliament. I'm retarded. I apologize. Villatoro accused fellow lawmakers of dealing a death blow to the country's democratic system during the late night session. Quote, today, Some people applaud this. Tomorrow they will regret it, she said, comparing El Salvador's slide into authoritarianism to the collapse of Venezuela's democracy. When all the orders came from one person and everything revolves around one single person, democracy no longer exists. And when you lose democracy, it takes years to get it back, Villatoro warned. Except there's still democracy. It's just a lifting of term limits. He can get voted out of office. He just, y'all have to field a candidate who can beat him. And the onus is on you to do that. To make your message something people are willing to engage with. Unless you're implying that Bukele is cheated to win his first term. Loyalist of Bukele, a social media savvy 44-year-old who once called himself the world's coolest dictator, celebrated the reforms, which will also see presidential terms extended from 5 years to 6 and bring the presidential election schedule for 2029 forward to 2027. The election's second round will also be scrapped. I mean, maybe is Bukele throwing his political opponents in prison? I know he's throwing a lot of people in prison, a lot of like gangs and criminals, but like I don't know. I'm genuinely asking. Is Bukele jailing his political opponents? Are people in their Congress or any of their politicians or any of their public figures, are any of them being unduly imprisoned for speaking out against him? I would be curious to know if that is the case. Loyalist of Bukele social. Oh, I already read that part. My bad. Susi Calias, one of 54 Nueva Ideas lawmakers in El Salvador's 60-seat assembly, tweeted, "The Constitution isn't untouchable. What should be untouchable is the will of the people. And today, more than ever, the people are at the center of our decisions." 13. As we know, Bitcoin can be monitored. Why not have the government know every penny you spend your money on? Uh, sure, but one of the things I don't like about using Bitcoin or any type of cryptocurrency is how easy it is to track my purchases. Oh, you saying El Salvador switched to Bitcoin? They use Bitcoin primarily? I didn't know about that. Bukele, who's one of Donald Trump's top Latin American allies, was first elected in 2019 and was reelected last year thanks to widespread public support for his hardline crackdown on gangs, which has seen homicide rates plummet. That 3-year clampdown has seen 2% of El Salvador's adult population jailed and due process suspended and made Bukele a role model for right-wing Latin American politicians grappling with high crime rates and for members of Trump's MAGA movement. But Bukele's concentration of power has horrified opposition politicians and activists. Juanita Gilbertis, Human Rights Watch's America's dictator, compared El Salvador's scrapping of its presidential term limits to Venezuela's 2009 referendum, which approved the same measure under its then populist president Hugo Chavez. El Salvador was the first country to implement Bitcoin as its official currency. Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Well, good for them. I don't think that's a good idea personally, but again, El Salvador, these people can kind of do what they want. I disagree with it, but like I don't live in El Salvador, so who am I to like I can suggest I can say I don't think that's a good idea and explain why, specifically because of what you said. The cost of privacy. The government can effectively track every purchase that you make, which is not okay in my opinion. But if this is how the people of El Salvador want to live, and if they're happy with it, then who am I to, you know? But Bukele's concentration of power was has horrified opposition. Oh yeah, I already read that part. My bad. 16 years later, Chavez heir Nicolas Maduro remains in power, having claimed a third term last year despite apparently losing the July 2024 election. El Salvador is traveling down the same path as Venezuela, Gilbertus warned. It starts with a leader who uses his popularity to concentrate power, and it ends in a dictatorship. In a rare interview with the foreign media last year, Bukele said he would not seek re-election, citing the constitutional prohibition, which was this week removed. Also, we have an agreement with my wife that this is my last term, Bukele told Time magazine, musing that he might write a book after leaving power. Few believe Bukele will honor that pledge. Welcome to the club of the authoritarian dictatorship of Maduro, Ortega, Diaz-Canal, tweeted Carlos Fernando Chamorro, a prominent Nicaraguan journalist forced into exile because of his country's democratic decline. Because it's been growing in value, it's growing in value currency. His people don't understand the rise of value will stop at some point, and he has bought their country out from under them. So are you? So are you like not a Bukele fan? Do you think that he's like that he's probably not gonna that he is a bad man who's going to do bad things? I mean, because it's possible. I mean, he is jailing a shitload of people. I'm sure some innocent people got kind of caught up in when you jail 2% of your entire population and suspend due process. It's you're probably gonna, some people are gonna get some not necessarily innocent, but some not so deserving people are gonna get caught up in that dragnet. And I mean, Bitcoin rising and falling. Yeah, that's one of my problems with cryptocurrency in general. Is that the value of everything has risen and fallen over time. Same thing happened to gold, right? But never to the extremes that. I mean, is that? I suppose that's possible. 13. He said that his whole rise to fame was paid for by risking it all in Bitcoin. I mean, maybe. I didn't hear about the Bitcoin stuff. I know Bukele because of the super prison and because of the way that like under his first term he completely the way that he's turned the country around, like the way the homicide rates in El Salvador have dropped. And the way, I know about him more for his crackdown on crime than I know, like, this stuff about Bitcoin is the first I'm hearing of it. So, now I don't represent everybody necessarily, but I imagine most people who know about Bukele probably know about him more for his stance on crime and incarceration and being friendly with Trump than they know about his Bitcoin stuff. Okay, well I didn't know that, and I agree. Bitcoin fluctuates way too much. It's too unstable of a resource. Not only that, but I understand that the original Bitcoin blockchain is finite. Eventually, it'll get to a point where you can't mine any more Bitcoin, but cryptocurrencies themselves are infinitely producible. Like, oh yeah, we can't mine any more Bitcoin. Well, we can just make new Bitcoin with a different blockchain. And and generally, whenever a resource is infinite, it's almost completely valueless. It's one of the reasons why gold is so expensive because it's rare. It's rare and it's hard to mine. Um, well, relatively rare. It's not that rare in that there's a lot of gold in the world. There's still a lot of gold in the world that hasn't been mined. But the mining and refining it, but it's also a finite resource. We will eventually mine all the gold if we keep mining. But then it also has values outside of just being pretty metal. Like it's usable as like it's a better conductor of electricity than like copper, for instance. Gold is actually better for that. Copper is just way more plentiful and not nearly as expensive. They keep splitting Bitcoin. I didn't know that. See, I'm not a crypto guy. I don't really buy into the crypto stuff. I don't have a crypto folder. As I said, I think that crypto I don't want to call it a scam, but I prefer money to be based in tangible assets, land, energy, gold, these things. These things that, although the prices of them can fluctuate with time, they generally don't, they don't peak and valley the same way. They don't peak and valley the same way that like crypto does. I know people who lost a shitload of money because what was it in 2021 whenever Bitcoin like completely bottomed out, like it was almost a complete market crash. And I mean, sure, now it's climbed its way back up, but again, that bubble can just burst again. Earth keeps making the stuff we mine. Earthquakes are the Earth's plates growing and moving. Hey, practical. I've played around with crypto by playing the game of buying it and selling it short term, but I would never buy it and hold it as a long term asset. I agree. I tend to think to just kind of like watch the pattern of. I mean, this is not investment advice. That's my disclaimer. But like what I would do is, especially with something as volatile as Bitcoin, try to see if there's any kind of like uh, pattern to it, like, or at least something predictable, then try to buy during the valley and sell during the peaks. But generally speaking, yes, no, crypto is backed by nothing, and it's relatively easy to make new bitcoins. So I don't buy it as a viable currency strategy. Like we could use it as a supplementary currency, but I still think that all of our money should be backed by gold and silver, as it says in the Constitution. It's just, in my opinion, Bitcoin is the definition of fiat currency. It's literally based on nothing. It's just, you know, fabricated out of the ether, and is only given value because we say it has value. Whereas gold actually has tangible, real world value, things that you can use it for. But yeah, the Bukele topic ended up spiraling into a crypto topics, which is fun. That's fine. I'm glad I got some chatters that I can bounce stuff off of whenever Liar's not here. But yeah, so in other news, people have been worried that the RussiaGate stuff that Tulsi recently revealed that nothing was going to get done about it. Well, it seems like maybe something's going to get done. Now, the same thing with the Epstein stuff. I really need people to check their expectations. Just like with the Epstein stuff, if you truly expected to see Bill Clinton get perp walked out of his house in handcuffs, you're setting yourself up for failure. Same thing here with Obama. If you're truly expecting Barack Obama to be perp walked out of his Martha's Vineyard home in handcuffs, you're setting yourself up for failure. He has presidential immunity. It's likely he's never going to be arrested for anything involving Russiagate, but there are other people that can be, and they should be. So we'll see what happens. It could do one of two things when mining is complete. It will become way more valuable, or its adoption could be reversed. And when TSHF, it's useless. What is TSHF? When the shit hits the fan? Is that what that means? $13. But anyway, shout out to Fox News. Yeah, the DOJ launching grand jury investigation into Russiagate conspiracy allegations. Bondi is acting on Gabbert's criminal referral claiming intelligence community suppression. So we might actually see some arrests from this. We'll see what happens, obviously. Check your expectations. That's just, check your expectations. Attorney General Pam Bondi has directed her staff Monday to act on the criminal referral from Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard related to the alleged conspiracy to tie President Donald Trump to Russia, and the Department of Justice is now opening a grand jury investigation into the matter, Fox News Digital has learned. Bondi personally ordered an unnamed federal prosecutor to initiate legal proceedings, and the prosecutor is expected to present department evidence to a grand jury, which would allow the department to secure a potential indictment, according to a letter from Bondi reviewed by Fox News Digital and a source familiar with the investigation. So, of course, anonymous sources, we just absolutely love those. No lies ever got told by an anonymous source, but still. That's why I said check your expectations. A DOJ spokesperson declined to comment on the report of an investigation, but said Bondi is taking the referral from Gabbard very seriously. The spokesperson said Bondi believed there is clear cause for deep concern and a need for the next steps. The DOJ confirmed 2 weeks ago it received a criminal referral from Gabbard. The referral included a memorandum titled Intelligence Community Suppression of Intelligence showing Russian and criminal actors did not impact the 2016 presidential election via cyber attacks on infrastructure, and asked for the DOJ to open an investigation. No charges have been brought at this stage of the investigation against any potential defendants. That's another thing. People are wondering why nobody has been arrested yet, because these things take time. All right. She said, like, Tulsi and her team found the evidence. They put it out there. They gave the criminal referral. Now it's in the hands of the DOJ. The DOJ now has to take all this evidence, get it all together in proper evidence, like in proper court form, get it all filed and everything like that. Then they have to present it to a judge. And then the judge has to, get warrants, and then they have to go before a grand jury, and then the grand jury has to hand down the indictments, and the indictments, then we get trials, and then so on and so forth. Also, expect a lot of people to cut deals. In fact, expect a lot of people to cut deals that won't include jail time. You're going to, hopefully, we'll see some people go to jail for this. Hopefully. We can dream, can't we? The revelation the revelation that the DOJ is moving forward with a grand jury probe comes after Gabbard declassified intelligence in July that shed new light on the Obama administration's alleged determination that Russia sought to help Trump in the 2016 election. Well, they didn't determine that that's what happened. They knew that was bullshit. They lied about it. They made up fake intelligence reports in order to discredit the incoming administration. Former President Barack Obama and his intelligence officials allegedly promoted a contrived narrative that Russia interfered in the 2016 election to help President Trump win, selling it to the American people as though it were true. It wasn't, Gabbard said during a press briefing of the intelligence. Among the declassified material was a meeting record revealing how Obama allegedly requested his deputies prepare an intelligence assessment in December 2016 after Trump had won the election. That allegedly details the tools Moscow used and the actions it took to influence the 2016 election. And this is the reason why Barack Obama will likely never see the inside of a jail cell, because the records that I've seen and that she's put out there shows that he just asked his people to prepare reports on this potentially happening. There's nothing in his orders that specifies for them to lie. Now, it's entirely possible that that part of the conversation happened outside of the official record, so that there'd be no record of it, and that he's still culpable. The problem is you got to prove it. And he is allowed, as the commander in chief, and the president, he's allowed to request these things. He can tell his intelligence people to put together any kind of report. The problem is, did he knowingly lie, or did the people working for him knowingly lie, and did they knowingly lie under his direct orders? This is kind of the backfire of the Supreme Court's ruling about presidential immunity, is that it's broad enough that unless we have, like, basically Barack Obama on tape saying, "This is brilliant, guys. This is brilliant. We fucking got him," somebody, one of his intelligence people telling him, like, walking him through all the made up evidence and everything that they, everything they made up. Basically, you have to get him, like, confessing on tape, and we're never going to get that. The intelligence assessment stressed that Russia's action did not affect the outcome of the election, but rather were intended to sow distrust in the democratic process. Gabbard has alleged that Obama and his national security officials laid the groundwork for a narrative that then candidate Trump and his campaign concluded to help him win the 2016 election. An FBI investigation and two special counsel investigations loomed over much of Trump's first administration. It is unclear whom the grand jury is expected to target and what charges could be in play given the statute of limitation for much of the activity from nearly a decade ago have lapsed. Former Obama intelligence officials, including John Brennan, James Clapper, and James Comey, have drawn scrutiny from Trump's officials for their alleged involvement in developing intelligence that undermined Trump's 2016 victory. And remember, this is the same party of people who told you that you were disgusting anti-American insurrectionists for questioning the outcome of the 2020 election. But whenever Democrats did it in 2016 and they outright lied about it, it's acceptable. It's okay when they do it. Rules for thee and not for me, am I right? The iron law of leftist projection. Whatever they accuse you of, they are doing themselves. Almost every time that is the case. So yeah, hopefully something comes of this. Again, this is the process is still super early. We'll see what happens. Oh, fuck off, Chris Rufo. So, I don't know why his Substack or whatever this is. I can't remember if this is a Substack, but like you have to refresh the page because that advertisement for, and I don't really mean that. I like Chris Rufo, so don't fuck off, Chris Rufo. But yeah, he interviewed. I thought this was hilarious, and I could not help myself. I had to I had to cover it. But Chris Rufo did an interview with Taylor Lorenz, and it seems very damage control-y. Like Taylor Lorenz knows like her reputation is destroyed. Nobody takes her seriously. She's a meme. Everybody makes fun of her. And even in the image here, she's still wearing a mask, which has become part of her brand, part of her fucking crazy shit lib brand. So she's still leaning into it a bit, but like I said, this feels kind of like damage control. Like she's trying to salvage some kind of reputation by acting like she's seen the light and understands. Like Brianna Wu has kind of gone through a similar thing where she's like, like okay, the left went too far, and maybe I was a part of it, but I'm better now. And it's just like, look, people on the right are willing to forgive former leftism if they believe that you're genuine. Tulsi Gabbard is a great example. I'm a great example. All of my righty friends. First of all, I have been very right wing for 20 years at this point. But I used to be a shit lib. I used to be a real hardcore shit lib, and I changed. But my change wasn't overnight. It was gradual, and a lot of it happened before I had any kind of real presence on the internet. So there's really nothing that people can dig up but the people that know me, they know how much of a shitlib I used to be. So rightoids are willing to forgive that kind of stuff. And like I said, Tulsi Gabbard's an example. And Russell Brand kind of is also an example. He didn't really stop being a shitlib though. Like he doesn't like vaccines and he questions the government about certain things, but he's still a bit too much of a socialist. But again, he's got a lot of love from the right. So over the last few years, especially since he turned Christian. So, if it feels genuine, but like with Brianna Wu or Taylor Lorenz, people who did, and said horrible shit. Taylor Lorenz was the one who doxed libs of TikTok. She wanted to stay, Shia wanted to stay anonymous. She wanted to stay an anon, like me. But Taylor Lorenz said no. She decided that the world needed to know who Shia Ratchick is. And now Shia is perfectly content being a public figure. She's got no problem with it. But my point. She's done and said a lot of horrible things, and now she's trying to like rebuild her image, rebuild her brand, and I don't think it's going to work. But how do you do that? You talk to a guy like Chris Rufo, like one of the guys who exposed CRT, who really got famous for fighting the CRT fight with the fuck's her name, black chick from CNN. Oh my God, I'm blanking on her name. She's bald. You know who I'm talking about. No, there's two bald black chicks on CNN, or is one of them on MSNBC? Joy Reid. Chris Rufo he was on the Joy Reid show talking about CRT, and that's how I discovered him. But yeah, so she's talking to right wing figures like Chris Rufo, and she's like having cordial conversations, and she's criticizing wokeism, and it just feels performative and fake, and just trying to rebuild her image. So for many, Taylor Lorenz is one of the defining media personalities of the woke era. She was a star reporter, quote unquote, at the New York Times and pioneered a characteristic style of controversy filled social media engagement. Politically, she was reliably left wing. Lorenz supported extreme coronavirus lockdowns, engaged in cancellation campaigns, and boosted the most radical ideas of the Black Lives Matter movement. Those three things alone means, in my opinion, she's beyond forgiveness. I don't care what she goes through. I don't care if she's like, I was wrong, Republicanism, is the real way to go. I'm sorry for all I don't care. You crossed way too many lines. You did way too much bad shit. You should just, if you really want to, like, effectively kind of like have some kind of redemption arc, or if you want absolution for your way, just stop being a public figure. Delete all your social media, stop doing interviews, and just go do something else for a living. I mean, she comes from a wealthy family. She probably doesn't even have to work. A few years later, however, the scene has shifted. Lorenz left the New York Times for the Washington Post. She departed the Post under a cloud of scandal, having caused numerous headaches for the paper, including doxing a popular social media creator and calling President Biden a war criminal. Despite this, Lorenz remains committed to the bit. Her politics have remained left-wing, and she still wears a coronavirus mask in public. But she recognizes that we have entered a new era. BLM has disintegrated, transgenderism is in retreat, and Donald Trump has cemented himself as the era's political center of gravity. The left, having failed to dispatch him, must grapple with what comes next. My conversation with Lorenz was somewhat split. On the one hand, she distanced herself from the woke era, criticizing some left-wing activism as fake. On the other side, she equivocated when asked about Luigi Mangione, the alleged assassin of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. Lorenz was careful not to endorse violence explicitly, but she, like many others, seemed fascinated with the darker side of politics. Radicalism is her fix. She started out on BLM, but soon she'll turn to the harder stuff, and she's not alone. This interview has been edited for length and clarity. Chris Rufo. It seems we are entering a post-woke era, the more strident, quote, resistance era. Anti-Trump media personalities have exhausted themselves. Taylor Lorenz. I agree with you. I did this video a while ago about the rise and fall of the resistance, and I do think that 2017 resistance era media is not going to be successful. First of all, they weren't really woke. They were grifters. Of course, of course, the no true Scotsman. She's the only real wokey. There was no real focus on, for instance, economic equality. It was all this fake corporate woke bullshit and resistance grifting. Quote, Donald Trump is unique evil, and that's why you have to give me a $35 a month. Give me $35 a month so that I can call him Orange Cheeto. They'll really take him down, or that'll really take him down. It was Mueller, it was Russiagate, it was this constant feeding people slop. Yeah, if you always thought Russiagate was horseshit, Taylor, why didn't you ever say anything? She didn't because she didn't. She didn't think it was. She didn't think it was slop. She probably was like everybody else on the left at the time. She's probably screaming about Russia, Russia, Russia. Even if she didn't do it on social media, I guarantee she was doing it in private. There's a lot of conspiracism in liberal spaces too. You see that in the anti-Trump movement's desire to constantly believe that he's just one scandal away from really going down. Or look at all the election fraud conspiracies where they think that Elon Musk hacked Starlink to make Trump president again. They'd rather live in that delusional space than acknowledge the reality, which is that the Democrats are deeply, deeply unpopular. They're selling a losing message, and they're not in touch with the struggles of the American people. You simp for Luigi Mangione and Hassan Piker. What the fuck? And you're from a wealthy family yourself, so what the fuck do you know about the struggles of the average American person? Yeah, Trump was born wealthy, and he's been wealthy his entire life, but he actually, goes on the ground. He actually talks to people. You know, like yeah, the garbage truck thing and the McDonald's thing were publicity stunts. But like you got to remember, he spent decades as a real estate guy talking to construction workers and foremen and spending time on construction sites. You know, he's been with regular people. He knows what it's like. And then he's also genuinely like he likes the same things that regular people like. He likes sports and McDonald's and hot blonde chicks with big boobs. Like, yes, has he always been wealthy? Sure, but he still has an air of everyman about him, which is one of the reasons why he's so popular. Because a lot of American men imagine that if they had Donald Trump's wealth, they would still be the same way. He'd be like, yeah, even if I was wealthy as Donald Trump, I would still, drink beer and eat pizza and eat Big Macs and watch UFC and watch football, and I would have a hot blonde wife too. So they see themselves in him. And they understand that and nobody believes that he's an everyman, but he has an air of everymanness about him because of the way that he presents himself and the things he's into. It's one of the things people like about him. I'm not a Trump supporter. Donald Trump is also not in touch with the struggles of American people, but he's more in touch with them than you are. But his movement is better at speaking to the resentment that a lot of Americans feel towards their elected leaders and the system as a whole. Rufo. And in your argument, if Democrats refuse to address economic equality or challenge that system, it inevitably leads to a reaction like Luigi Mangioni's alleged assassination of Brian Thompson. Yeah, I know we have to say alleged because he hasn't been convicted yet, but for fuck's sake, he's on video. Lorenz, I did a video about Luigi and the "somebody's got to do it" meme. One of the most popular memes on the internet in the past year has been assassinating the president. These posts get millions of likes. It is a very popular thing. I think it's a sign of a deeply sick democracy. You doxed people. Like, despite all the violence of the left over the last 5 years, you actively went out of your way to put out the home addresses of people who you knew could be in serious danger from, like, Antifa. You happily did it anyway. You don't give a shit about violence. And then the way you simp for Luigi. Like, come on. So to say it's a sign of a deeply sick democracy, you contributed to it, Tay Tay. It's one of the reasons why people hate you, is because how okay you are with political violence when it's left wingers killing right wingers. Hell, we don't even know what Brian Thompson's political affiliation was. I don't, anyway. And even if he was a Democrat, he didn't deserve to be executed in the street like that. If you aren't giving people a legal and effective way to make their voices heard, they're going to go outside the system. I actually don't think that Luigi is a leftist at all. I think he's a reactionary centrist, a centrist, tech pill Democrat type of person. Yeah, horse shit. That's cope. That is copey as shit. It's very cope. Rufo, I would agree that Mangione seems to be some kind of centrist or rationalist. His social media feed was banal, Ivy League, gently dissenting from orthodoxy. Jonathan Haidt is not exactly a revolutionary. Lorenz, no, but there's this whole movement around the idea of the high agency lifestyle, and being a high agency person means that you're not waiting around. You're not an NPC, letting life pass you by. You're doing something in the world. You're really making change. You're not a slave to your phone. It's the reactionary belief against, it's the reactionary belief system against technology too. It's an extension of the Jonathan Haidt stuff. It's very much like him, or it's very much him. Like, oh, you're being brain rotted by short form content, seize control of your life, that kind of energy. These people are all like Luigi. That's the ideology I see expressed on his feed. I have never talked to Luigi, but I do think he clearly was aggrieved in some way with the system, like as we all are, and he wanted to make a difference. And he's the perfect vehicle for the public to rally around because his supporters, the girls that are standing outside his prison cell cheering, they view him as a moral paragon. No, it's because they think he's hot and he's a murderer and women are insane. If they find you, if they think you're hot and you're a killer, women love that shit. I don't know why. I don't know why. But every serial killer ever in history, pretty much, while he's in prison, got marriage proposals from thousands of women. The biggest consumers of true crime content in the world are women. Women simp for murderers super hard. So women standing outside of his prison cell cheering, they're not cheering because they're politically engaged. They're cheering because A, they're lefties, B, they think he's hot, and C, he killed someone. But what I'm struggling to understand is how do you get from high agency lifestyle to gunning down a health insurance CEO on the streets of Manhattan? I don't see how you get from coddling of the American mind to political assassination. Lorenz, I think he wanted to do something that would put him in the news. I think he wanted to do something that was impactful. I think he wanted to open up his discussion about healthcare. A lot of people who do any public act of violence are politically motivated. They're hoping for some outcome. Luigi was successful in the fact that we're talking about healthcare a lot more. No, we're not. That's cope. We are not talking about healthcare a lot more. People are talking about Luigi because he's a murderer. Like, we're not talking about healthcare a lot more. She's just completely lying about that. It's just total cope. He's seen as a class traitor. He grew up wealthy, he grew up with privilege, so he has this narrative that he's turned his back on that to be a man of the people. He's also just a conventionally attractive young man, and this is America where people love killers. We have a Netflix series lionizing them. True crime is one of the most popular genres of content with women. Women who are predominantly leftist. Yeah, it's this is all cope. She's acting like she's not one of these women. Like I'm just a neutral observer. I'm just reporting what I see. Horseshit. The way she simps for men like him and the way she simps for men like Hassan Piker, she's into it. Everybody knows it. Rufo, by your calculation, if the assassination of Brian Thompson led through an improbable chain of events to a single payer healthcare system, would his killing then be worthwhile or justified? Lorenz, I thought about the question. I broadly support single payer. I think that it is crazy that we don't have public health care in America. But before I could say, like, this man should die for single payer, I want to understand it a little bit better. We should look at this broader system, right? If you have a death machine and you shoot the person that stops the death machine, is that a moral act? I'm not a philosopher, but I think that we should acknowledge that our current for profit insurance system is a death machine. It's really not, though. Medical outcomes in the United States are pretty much on par with like the rest of the Western world. Like I'm sure people could like trot out some statistics where we do worse with like other we do worse in like certain other circumstances, but like there's a reason why foreigners come to America for medical treatment because it's just better. Because the profit motive is the greatest motive in the world for innovation and for almost anybody to do anything. Rufo, from my point of view, it seems that the progressive movement has stalled out. And historically, if you look at the period from 1968 to 1972, the left then splinters into violent factions, charismatic figures, and cult gurus. It seems that we are seeing that emerge again, and these are the early warning signs. Lorenz, I don't think it's the left, it's everyone. Trump's going to die at some point. He's human, and I think everyone's going to be left in a lurch. I think that he's holding a lot of people together for now, but overall, we have this rotten system that is fundamentally broken. I don't think that Trump is prepared to address those concerns. I think he's going to die, and what's going to happen when he dies? I don't know. I don't know that JD Vance is as compelling. He didn't start off that way, but the more time that he spends on the internet, and JD Vance is really good. His internet game is top shelf stuff. He's really good at memeing, and he is charismatic. He actually is an everyman. He didn't grow up wealthy. He became wealthy independently after he got out of college, after he got out of the Marines and he got out of college. Like, he actually is an everyman. He's a boy from the hills of Appalachia who grew up in Ohio. Like, went to college. You know, he is the American dream. His single mother was a drug addict. He was raised by his grandma. Like, he actually is an everyman, and he's incredibly popular. Will he be as popular as Trump? That's I tend to agree that's probably not the case because but that's like so few people are ever going to be as popular as Donald Trump. But do I think that JD Vance could be the leader of the MAGA movement moving forward and he'll be able to mostly hold the coalition together? Sure. There are going to be people who fracture off because it was for them it was Trump or nobody, and it doesn't matter who Trump's like philosophical or political heir apparent is. It doesn't matter. No Trump, no them. But I think as time goes on, JD Vance is going to slot into that position fairly nicely. And I've said this every time I've brought this up, but assuming he doesn't have some massive fuck up that just completely destroys all of his political capital. You think he's going to die because of natural causes or because somebody's got to do it? That's what Rufo said. Lorenz, no, no, no. Oh my God, you mentioned somebody's got to do it. Lorenz, well, it is crazy that it's such a popular meme and there's no discussion of that on the left or the right. Do you agree with the premise of the meme? That somebody has to murder the president? No, Rufo, I'm not going to say that ever. I'm not going to get sent to El Salvador. You wouldn't, bitch. You're an American citizen. Even if you were the type of person who thought that Trump should be out of power at all costs, I think that murdering Trump would be so stupid because then you literally just turn him into a martyr. Rufo, will woke ever return? Lorenz, I don't think we're going to get the resistance type of woke back, and we shouldn't want it back. You were happy to be a part of it whenever it was popular, but now that it's lost its steam, you're you're abandoning it. You're jumping overboard like a rat fleeing a sinking ship. Taylor Lorenz deserves no credit. None whatsoever. She's a garbage human being. She's a stupid nepo baby. She can sit here and act like she's not okay with political violence, but then, she turns around and supports BLM and Antifa and Luigi Mangione. So she's just smart enough to know to not say murder is good. But I give her zero credit, and she can go fuck herself. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul. So let's get into some good news. This is going to be a short stream today because I'm trying to not tempt the. I'm trying to. I don't have anyone to banter with, so that's definitely gonna takes time out of the process. But also trying to not test fate too much. The stream has been very smooth so far, so gotta try to keep from going completely scuffed like I have been the last couple days. So yeah, some good news. White pills to end. This is France 24, so this is a French website, but still very interesting stuff. U.S. to increase reward for Venezuelan President Maduro's arrest to $50 million. So here's the thing: there's an alternate universe. If you believe in multiverse theory, there's an alternate timeline where I joined the military out of high school, and Liar and I met while we were both in the army. Well, he wasn't in the American army; he's in the Filipino army. But you get my point. And then we decided to become mercenaries. And in that alternate universe, Mercenary Palpy and Mercenary Liar decided we're going to be the guys who are going to kidnap President Maduro and bring him back to the United States to collect this $50 million. Then we're going to retire. The United States on Thursday raised $50 million, its reward for the arrest of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, who was indicted in the U.S. on drug trafficking charges in 2020. The U.S., which does not recognize Maduro's past two election victories, says that Maduro is, quote, one of the largest narco traffickers in the world and a threat to national security. I am not a fan of Maduro. I think he should get him being South American, I think he should probably get the helicopter ride. Pinochet style. The U.S. doubled its bounty on Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, who faces federal drug trafficking charges, to $50 million on Thursday, a move Caracas described as pathetic and ridiculous. Yeah, except in the alternate universe where me and Liar and our band of mercenaries, successfully kidnapped him and brought him to the United States to face justice. while we also got our $50 million reward. Washington, which does not recognize Maduro's past 2 election victories, accuses the South American country's leader of leading a cocaine trafficking gang. Quote, today, the Department of Justice and State Department are announcing a historic $50 million reward for information leading to the arrest of Nicolas Maduro, Attorney General Pam Bondi said in a video on social media. He is one of the largest narco traffickers in the world and a threat to our national security. The previous bounty was set in January at $25 million. Venezuelan Foreign Minister Ivan Gil said Bondi's pathetic bounty was the most ridiculous smokescreen we have ever seen. Yeah, no, I firmly believe that Maduro lost the last 2 elections. Like, I can't remember, this was because I think we covered it at the time, how ridiculous. Maybe we didn't. Maybe it was just me and Lair talking about it privately. But we'd read all the stuff about it, and it does not seem legitimate to me. The dignity of our homeland is not for sale. We reject the crude political propaganda operation, Gil said on Telegram. In 2020, during President Donald Trump's first term in office, Maduro and other high-ranking Venezuelan officials were indicted in federal court in New York on several charges, including participating in a narco-terrorism conspiracy. The Justice Department accused Maduro of leading a cocaine trafficking gang called the Cartel of the Suns that shipped hundreds of tons of narcotics into the United States over 2 decades, earning hundreds of millions of dollars. Investigators say the cartel worked hand in hand with the rebel Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia, which the United States has labeled a terrorist organization. Bondi said Maduro has also worked with the Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua and Mexico's Sinaloa cartel. The USDA, fuck me dead, the USDEA has seized 30 tons of cocaine linked to Maduro and his associates, with nearly 70 tons linked to Maduro himself. Or with nearly 7, not 70, my bad, I misread that. With nearly 7 tons linked to Maduro himself, Bondi said. The U.S. government has also seized more than $700 million in Maduro-linked assets, including 2 Venezuelan government aircraft, since September last year, according to Bondi. Quote, yet Maduro's reign of terror continues, she said. Under President Trump's leadership, Maduro will not escape justice, and he will be held accountable for his despicable crimes. The 62-year-old Maduro, a former bus driver and trade unionist, faces up to life in prison if he can be tried and is convicted. At the time of the indictment, Maduro slammed what he called spurious false accusations. In June, Venezuela's former intelligence chief, Hugo Armando Carvalho, whatever, Jesus Christ, I wish Lyra was here to make fun of me for mispronouncing these Hispanic names, pleaded guilty to U.S. drug trafficking and narco-terrorism charges. The Miami Herald, citing sources familiar with the case, said Carvajal had, I think I finally got it, Carvajal, had offered to provide U.S. authorities with documents and testimony implicating Maduro. So hopefully he's not just saying that to get a deal. He actually has something we can use. And I mean, they successfully indicted Maduro, so maybe they do have something. Relations between Washington and Caracas have been deteriorating for years. The U.S. government has not recognized Maduro, who first took office in 2013, as the duly elected president of Venezuela since the State Department called a deeply flawed 2018 presidential election. In July 28, 2024, Venezuelan presidential election, Maduro fraudulently declared himself the victor despite evidence to the contrary, the State Department said in an announcement of the earlier bounty in January. The United States has joined many other countries in refusing to recognize Maduro as the legitimate winner of the July 2024 presidential election. Washington has placed an array of economic sanctions on Maduro's government. For its part, Maduro's government has long denounced U.S. interference in Venezuela. On Thursday, Interior Minister Diosdado Cabello announced that security services had thwarted a bomb attack in a commercial area of the capital, Caracas. As Venezuelan authorities often do in such cases, Cabello accused the U.S. and the Venezuelan opposition of instigating the thwarted attack. I mean, it's possible that we were trying to go over there to blow shit up it's possible, we've done stuff like that before, but I don't know if, like, the decline of the Venezuelan economy and the standard of living and how bad the country is and why people are fleeing it in droves and why, videos came out years ago of people literally beating a cow to death with a rock so they could eat it because people are starving They're eating their dogs and pets, and they're, like I said, they're beating cows to death with rocks so that they could eat it. That country's been in decline ever since the communists took over. And make no mistake about it, Chavez and Maduro are communists. They're Soviet style, Soviet inspired, Stalinist type of socialism, and it's ridiculous. They're holdovers from from when the Soviets were, heavily involved in Central and South America, trying to foster revolutions down there and socialist revolutions. And yeah, I have no. And here's the thing: communists aren't people to me. I hate them. I deeply hate them. They don't think I have any rights, so why should I care about theirs? Like, I feel bad for the Venezuelan people, but I genuinely don't care, like, what happens to Nicolas Maduro. If the meteor were to fall out of the sky and crush him, I would genuinely think the world would be a better place. I do not like Nicolas Maduro. I think he's a giant piece of shit. I genuinely wish the worst for him. Um, yeah, I hope somebody gets this reward. No more Maduro. Maybe Venezuela can then open itself back up and stop being a socialist shithole. Because they were super wealthy because they have so much oil. But everything got nationalized, and then the economy took a giant shit, and it's all started with Chavez. But anyway, last story of the day, more good news. Probably the goodest news this week, to be honest with you. Disney and Gina Carano have settled their lawsuit. Now, some people say this isn't good news, that she took a payoff, that like she should have been, she shouldn't have given up. She should have taken them to court all the way. But they probably offered her a fuckload of money to settle. And at a certain point, you're stupid for not taking the settlement. Disney settles Gina Carano's lawsuit after firing her from The Mandalorian for comparing being conservative in the U.S. to being Jewish in Nazi Germany. Walt Disney has settled its lawsuit with martial artist turned actress Gina Carano, who sued the company for firing her after she compared being a conservative in the U.S. to being Jewish in Nazi Germany. Carano filed the wrongful termination and sex discrimination suit against the entertainment conglomerate in 2024, 3 years after sharing the controversial social media posts while acting in the Disney Plus Star Wars-linked streaming series The Mandalorian. In the Elon Musk-backed lawsuit, Carano argued that Disney and Lucasfilm, the company behind Star Wars franchise, canned her for promoting conservative opinions that other male stars had previously shared without consequence. A Lucasfilm spokesperson highlighted that Carano, quote, was always well respected by her directors, co-stars, and staff, and she worked hard to perfect her craft while treating her colleagues with kindness and respect, in a statement released Thursday. With this lawsuit concluded, we look forward to identifying opportunities to work together with Ms. Carano in the near future, their spokesperson said. No additional details about the settlement were revealed. It is unclear if Lucasfilm plans to reintroduce Carano's Axe character in The Mandalorian or in another Star Wars series. Carano celebrated the suit's drawn-out conclusion, saying it was the best outcome for all parties involved, while thanking Musk for his charity. This is the image that she posted, by the way. Can we zoom in on this? Yeah. Jews were beaten in the streets, not by Nazi soldiers, but by their neighbors, even by children. Quote, because history is edited, most people today don't realize that to get to the point where Nazi soldiers could easily round up thousands of Jews, the government first made their own neighbors hate them simply by being Jews. That is how is that any different from hating someone for their political views? A lot of people said that was a stupid comparison to make. I think it's completely fair. Because especially at the time that she posted this in 2021, we were in the middle of the summer of love, and it was perfectly acceptable on the left to be violent with right-wingers, which is what happened. First it became socially acceptable to be violent with Jews, and then it all kind of escalated from there. Like, I would agree, I wouldn't have posted it just because it's comparing everything to Nazi Germany is kind of cringe. but I see the point she was trying to make, and I ultimately agree with it. Quote, I am humbled and grateful to God for his love and grace in this outcome, Carano wrote on X. In 2021, Carano shared a series of inflammatory posts claiming that America's political climate had shifted to persecute those with unpopular opinions, like the Nazis attacking Jewish people leading up to and during World War II. Quote, Jews are beaten in the streets, not by Nazi soldiers, but by their neighbors, even by children, Carano wrote on Instagram. Yeah, I already read all that. Sleuths diving into her other social media accounts unearthed dozens of old posts promoting debunked conspiracy theories about the COVID pandemic and voter fraud during 2020 presidential elections. Yeah, debunked, quote unquote. Quote, Democratic government leaders now recommend we all wear blindfolds along with masks so we can't see what's really going on, she wrote in another tweet. Carano was, I like the New York Post, but sometimes, some of their writers aren't perfect. Carano was swiftly axed from The Mandalorian, one of Star Wars franchise's first live-action television series on the shiny new Disney Plus streaming service. She appeared in 7 episodes as Cara Dune, a mercenary and ally of Pedro Pascal's Din Djarin, throughout the first and second seasons. Yes, like many, I stopped watching The Mandalorian after season 2. I thought it wasn't fair wasn't fair what they did to Gina. But she got a settlement, so she got a big fat payday. And now she could possibly work with Disney again in the future, which means more big fat paydays. We'll see what happens. Although nothing Disney turns out anymore is any good, so maybe she wants to avoid that. I don't know. But, good for Gina Carano. Good for her. Good times. So yeah, that's pretty much the show. Like again, I normally try to do 2 hours, but when I don't have Liar to banter with, it kind of makes it hard to fill out the time. But yeah, there's it's an evil world we live in. But yeah, no, everybody who Practical and 13 who got the chat, thanks for stopping by. Who else? We had Swaggy Mick No Legs, who at one point popped up in the chat, so thanks for him too. Be sure to like and sub, follow the links, and sub everywhere else, and follow me on X. Check out the gaming streams that I do Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Been playing Castlevania recently. I didn't stream this past Thursday because I didn't have an excuse. I just didn't fucking feel like it. And I mean, if it gets to a point, if I grow the audience, I get to a point where I can actually do this for a living, then I won't take days off because I'll see it as a job. But right now, it's not my job as much as I'd like it to be. So I'm still in that point where I could just kind of decide. And that doesn't happen to me very often. But some days I get home from work and I'm just tired and I still stream anyway. But Thursday, I was just, no, I just don't have it in me. But yeah, no, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, that's Clown World Gaming, Clown World Chronicles every Saturday morning, Practical Gaming, what's his name? Yeah, Practical with a 1 instead of an I. He's live right now. I don't know how to raid, or I would raid us over there. All 3 people watching currently. But no, go check him out. Go sub to him and go watch his streams. That's what I'm going to be doing whenever I'm done here. But yeah, thanks for stopping by. It was a good show. I wish Liar was here, and maybe he will be next week. We'll see what happens. But in the meantime, you guys have a good weekend, and I will likely see you Tuesday.